Hey everyone, hi, welcome to another episode of the Magical Podcast. This is going to be the last episode for this year. I'm going to take a break, and I was thinking of doing a solo episode, but I didn't want to ramble for 20 minutes straight. So I actually reached out to my YC batchmates, my section mates, in fact, and I'll tell you more about what that means later. And Hassan kindly agreed to speak with me and be a guest on the podcast. So I'm really excited to invite Hasan Nawaz from Hubuk, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks a lot for having me, Hannah. I really appreciate it. So my name is Hassan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hubuk. Hubuk is a single API which enables any company to issue cards and bank accounts under their own brand. So also known as banking as a service platform. 15 customers across Europe. We're live with MasterCard and Visa, credit, debit, and prepaid cards. Based out of Barcelona, fully remote team.
Oh yeah, that's true as well. We are both based out of Barcelona, and we've never met though. I think we've both been
we have to
heads
do
down
that
working.
one.
Yeah, we have to do that in December. And
Definitely.
so, like I said, Hassan was part of the YC batch, Winter 21. And in YC, the way it works is they have the batch, then they have groups, and then they have sections within that group. And it's your section that you meet most often. I think we had about 10 companies probably in our section. And so Hassan and I would see each other every week at least once. And so you get to develop a strong bond. And in fact, one of the funny things that I remember YC said was, you're actually going to develop stronger bonds after the batch. And I do think it's been kind of true. Do you think so that
That's
after the batch?
Yeah, that's very true. I think now as the batch size has been relatively big, 300 companies or something, and you're right, Michael, I think said in one of those calls that you're gonna end up being friends with your section mates or probably some group mates because the group is larger. But you're really gonna make friends for life, kind of. Who are in a similar kind of stage of mindset and struggle as well as a founder, as an entrepreneur after the batch finishes. And we have done that by that monthly call where we come in and you appear and you actually meet and you share what is happening. So everything looks nice in the beginning, and then I think that's very true. We make friends with section mates in this case.
Yep. And maybe let's talk a little bit about getting into YC. Like, I remember then when we got into YC, we were pretty young as a company. We had been around for a few months. We actually did have a few paying customers, but we were very much sort of in the wilderness, sort of a newborn like stage. But I believe you came in with a little bit more product maturity. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's true. So we have a history of pivots. So we came to YC with our learnings. So we started in December 2017, Hubuk version, let's say 0.1. Very different product, but always been fintech. We're doing high frequency trading, bought. Didn't work out for crypto, especially market. We tried to launch a neobank for crypto back in December, mid 2018. So that is still a long time in crypto time and internet time. And 2018, we just finished 21. Nobody wanted to issue our cards because banks and crypto don't really go together. Now they're coming together recently with Coinbase going public, but not that time. We pivoted again. We launched a QR payments app as an alternative to Visa and MasterCard. We took, idea of building analytics for offline businesses by providing a P2P cash app style app for Europe. We are not a QR market in Europe, we realized afterwards. Then we pivoted towards Hubuk, let's say 0.4, which was a Pigari called Corporate Expense Card Program. So similar to Brex, but without credit and in Spain. This time we were lucky. We got a few customers, we got some traction, and we got pre-seed funding. That was December 2019. And then as we launched in March, COVID happened. So if you sell corporate expense cards to salespeople on the road and for business expense, you're not going to have much. So we tried to figure out what to do with our lives and the product we built and the money we took. and ended up finding a distribution channel, ended up finding a customer who's a B2B SaaS company doing taxes for freelancers. They have a software which digitalizes that taxing thing. And they said, hey, we love what you built at Pigari, but we want it under our own brand. And that's where we said, okay, let's charge them. We were not in YC, but we learned a little bit like, hey, this time no pivot is happening without really making sure somebody's willing to pay for it. So we charged sent an invoice, didn't have a template for invoice, never invoiced anyone. We sent an invoice, 22,000 euros, and they paid. And that was Hobook's current situation. So we went into a platform. We joined YC with 54K of ARR with 3 customers. And we were 5 people, the 2 developers, me, Ignacio, my co-founder, and a marketing person. And then, YC happened, and we did demo day, and that's the story where we come from.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think like our section was more based on the time zone, and sort of like we were all doing kind of B2B or some kind of, I don't think there was any B2C really in it, but everybody came in at a kind of a different stage. But then I think the common goal for everybody there in YC is getting to the demo day and picking a milestone, kind of trying to chase that, getting to that, having a solid pitch nailed down. So it's amazing how they are able to bring all these companies at different stages and yet sort of like drive them through one process and sort of advise and make them investment ready. Like in my mind, at least, the biggest reason to go into YC is the network, of course, but then getting fundraising ready. Would you agree with that?
That's very true. I think it depends on the individual situation of every founder. So, we have had people who pivoted during the batch, right? So in my case, let's say me and Ignacio. So I didn't go to Harvard or Oxford or anything like that. I'm not an MBA. I'm a software developer, 12 years. And I'm not the typical European CEO, personality, which normally investors get, MBA from Oxford or something, and they're like mostly McKinsey, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs people, as a CEO figure, and then you get a CTO, and that's the typical European founder profile, which is recently changing. So for us, getting into YC was, there are check boxes, let's say, from an investment point of view. So we checked that box by being a YC alum, which check the box of, okay, these guys don't have an MBA, or they're not a typical profile. So I think it's for the developer who nobody would invest because he's not the right profile. YC is the way to get in and check that box and actually learn, probably better than those MBAs, I guess, how to build companies, that product market fit finding situation, and then pitching in investors. So it's great, I think, if you get the opportunity. That's amazing.
I agree 100%. I think for me, it was almost like I felt like it was getting a ticket to the race almost, right? Like I'd been an entrepreneur like you for almost over a decade, yet I didn't really feel that I had this kind of like into the network or into the sort of like this inner circle, whatever you want to call it. I certainly wasn't the kind of entrepreneur that could induce like a certain kind of FOMO in investors, or like just run the process in a way, like even if I knew it theoretically, I didn't know how to run the process of fundraising and create like some, how in sales you have to create some sort of closing pressure or something. So I think YC is extremely good with that. And I as well, I wrote a blog post about it too. I highly encourage people to go through YC. It is like a pretty condensed program. It's pretty intense. I think 17 weeks. Like you come in and people have this Chrome extension with that countdown to demo day, and it's for it is a lot of pressure, right? It's
you feel it.
You definitely feel it. I remember like just the very first Michael Seibel, when he welcomed us, he said, "This is the only time I'm going to say this. Congratulations. You've made it. That's it. Now let's get to work." So it was definitely very intense. Let's fast forward a little bit and continue that conversation and talk about a little bit about around the demo day. Like YC's advice is typically to not do a lot of fundraising before the demo. I think broke that advice, and I'm going to talk about that in another podcast someday. But
I
their
broke it
advice,
as well. But the
okay, good to
advice is
know.
not to do, right?
Yeah.
The advice is not to raise before demo day. Most of the time, Michael is right, I think. I think till today, he's always been right in what he said. And we will always, not always have listened to what he said. And as I guess it's no natural or human stuff that you don't listen and then you do it and then you learn it the hard way and then you say, okay, next time I will never do it. And then you say, oh, he said it, right? You didn't listen. So at that time, you're in that moment, you come from a place where you have hard times in fundraising before, or you have never done it before. So that you see that thing and you're like, okay, why not just do it? Why I have to wait till, and then there are some external factors as well. We all know some people start reaching out, it leaks a little bit, and and then people try to get in before the demo day, and you're thinking, oh, somebody said, an alum said, an ex-alum said you should do it before because you can raise more.
Alums have a lot of, say for sure. Like when you talk to alumni, they tell you, and you do listen to them a lot. Actually, I did too.
So we raised in February an amount. I think it was good. We could have done better, definitely. We could have done it with different funds, definitely, with funds who have a higher, let's say, follow-on rate of following up in Series A's, definitely. But hey, it is what it is, right? So we did what we did and it's passed. So we still have a great, amazing group of investors. They're all like tier one, let's say. But if you want a Sequoia and stuff, then you should do a different, strategy. And
Sequoia and Andreessen at seed stage is almost like this mirage, right? Like everybody in YC sees it and everybody like thinks that they're going to get it, but they probably pick one company out of the whole batch. And it's probably more, they pick obviously great companies, but after having gone through that process, I feel like they're almost set up on certain domains that they want to invest in. And so they go find the best company in that domain in the batch, which is an exceptional company. And then they go fund that.
There's this saying about Sequoia being like they want to invest in category creators, right?
Sure.
So we know one of our batchmates is invested by Sequoia, and they are actually. We haven't seen anything like that before. I mean, I haven't seen that kind of product before, so it makes sense, I think, over there.
Yeah, and I think like I have no problem accepting as well that up until recently, my fundraise definitely came from a place of fear. A fear of like not having enough money, or a fear of having tried to raise money in the past and then not being able to raise money. And again, I'm very honest in accepting that to me, a win is more important than the size of the win. I think once I have the win, I'll probably regret that, okay, I could have optimized dilution a little bit. But as of like now, I still remember vividly that when we came into YC, even raising 300K or 500K actually felt like a big deal to me personally. So when I had the opportunity to do that right getting into YC, I took it. And I have no regrets about that, honestly. But most of our fundraising happened around the demo day, but definitely before the demo day. And I'm actually glad I did it. I'm pretty happy with the investors we raised from. And but let's talk about this thing. I think we were talking about before the recording that, at least in my mind, I used to think you raise some money, then you just go back to work for 18 months. You never think about fundraising again. And maybe that used to be true someday. It doesn't feel like it's true today. What's been your experience since YC?
So here's the thing. I think Michael and Gustav were right, and Dalton as well. They actually did last week a video on rookie mistakes in fundraising from founders like us who give them feedback on, hey, should have not done it, should have not done this and that. So that's a great video if somebody's listening to go watch in YouTube. It's on the YC
We'll link to it.
Yeah, we'll link to it. And I think you're right. but it's very hard to control when money is in your bank account. You spend it somehow, right? And if you are not really, so for example, we've made a mistake of not really controlling from day one the burn rate of people, not having a very strict tight plan on, okay, if you see a great profile, you say, yeah, let's hire it. Or okay, this provider might be able to help, but not really thinking about as how that added cost will be affecting your burn rate in time. And then it reaches that point where it's really hard if you don't, so you have to do a very deeper cut almost to the bone to actually make changes in the runway. And that is I think you just learn it because you've never done it before, and the next time you probably figure it out. The faster you do it, it's better. So that's why then you come to a point where, or traction. In our case, for example, we have a longer sales period, longer integration period of a customer going live, and then you waiting for that metric on their issues of cards and transactions to come in faster. And if they're not going live faster, then you're delayed. So you need a more longer time to reach that KPI for your next, whatever is your milestone for the next funding round. So I think that you don't really know. And if you don't have planned up front, especially on control and burn, then you lose it. I think that's what happens.
Yeah,
and then,
fair enough.
And the salaries are expensive. I mean, hiring is super expensive. You know that. I mean, I couldn't hire a developer in Barcelona.
I know that now. I didn't know that when I left for YC.
Exactly. At that time, you were not hiring as as fast, or trying to really get into those, okay, what is the salary? So market probably salary, there's that PG article on multiply 15,000 by the number of developers you want, multiply by the 18 months you want, and, but then you see they're like, but wait, how am I going to hire with this number? That's the wrong, it's not going to happen. And yeah, so not controlling burn creates problems of, okay, I have to do an extension or something. And also, I guess if you're going great, people, we saw a lot of unicorns recently from last 2-3 years old batches, right? So W16 and all those guys, they're doing great. And you see round, even one close and in 6 months they're doing, and I don't understand how
Absolutely.
that works.
Yeah.
But
not yet. I think we will be there as well.
Hopefully, if the traction
Because I wouldn't have predicted that we would be out raising again in 6 months. And to be honest, like when we were raising our second seed round, because we got approached by Connect Ventures, we really liked them, but then I was not sure if we should raise, and I went and looked. The second seed is actually a pretty legit round now, like because and this thing resonated with me is the Series A now is almost like a growth round. Before, Series A used to be actually the round where you like really double down on the product and figured out all the metrics. But now, since Series A's can be sometimes up to pretty easily, actually, some of our YC batchmates just recently raised in the 15 to 25 million range.
Yeah.
So that's almost a growth round. So you need a lot more capital at the seed round to sort of be able to hit those metrics. So I think the market has shifted a lot too in terms of expectations from seed companies.
That's very true. I think, before YC, I couldn't think of like having a seed round of like, in millions. And now, yesterday, day before yesterday, we saw that Batchmate raised 25 million Series A. Like, okay. So, and you see in US, okay, they are in Europe, but US batchmates are raising like even higher rounds on. So I think that creates also. So I think it depends on the traction. So if that is there, and investors are also, because they have bigger and bigger funds. If you see recently, a lot of investor funds are also larger sizes now.
Absolutely.
So, before we joined YC, I don't know if you remember one of the calls where they said you need 100 million ARR to build $1 billion company. So that was kind of like your pitch, right? So how are you going to achieve 100 million ARR? So that's when you invest, investors invest.
Yeah.
Now YC was saying, how do you build not $1 billion company, but a $10 billion company?
Yeah, so $1 billion revenue. Because there is no precedent for it, right? Like Twilios of the world and the Zendesks of the world, they are actually approaching or crossing $1 billion a year in revenue and growing. I recently saw this tweet that Datadog is growing at 75% year on year at $1.2 billion in revenue. So I think like that's the other thing. Like I felt like for me, switching from that bootstrapping mindset to this funded mindset, one of the things I had to do was to like completely accept and embrace the game that it is like about hitting it out of the park. You cannot like I used to be very reluctant in even saying like, yeah, we want to exit for $1 billion but honestly, you are doing nobody any service by not accepting or embracing that game. Like once you raise a $4 million seed round or something like that, that's the game you are in. You might as well like wholly embrace it, buckle up, and then just go for the ride. Like,
That's very true. I think you learn it afterwards. We also did with our seed, which is not announced. We'll announce it hopefully very soon in a few weeks. And we learned that, okay, it's not about, okay, just build some company. And no. Looking at the game, which is, hey, I'm giving you this much money and I'm expecting whatever my 10x is. So if that person is expecting that 10x, if you raise a bigger round in Series A and B, so everybody's expecting their, okay, not 10x's, but probably their 3x's or 4x's on growth rounds. So how are you going to achieve that? That means either you go really, really big or there's nothing there. So the game is, or you're building a public company or IPO-able company, or you're not. So I think that's
also, I think this is a good segue into hiring because it's not just true of investors. Like if you're actually talking to the top talent, right? Like whether it's in engineering, whether it's in business, they also want those returns. Like they have a huge opportunity cost. Somehow we have this kind of founder DNA. So even if we make only, like we can talk about billions, but if in the end of the day we end up making only $6,000 a month, we are okay with that for some strange reason. I never understood that why. But the people who are actually in it for, as a job or consultants, like they really do, they are betting on your equity. So it's not just the investors. I think that's the one that's talked about the most. But in fact, at seed stage, you can't even get like really proven sort of business talent, for example, at least, or engineering management talent. So because those guys only want to come in at Series B or Series C and the stock has to be valued at a certain. So it's not just about, I think at least in the bootstrapping world, it's almost seen as a little bit of a greed of investors, which is not at all true. But it's this expectation of return from everybody, from your team members, from your investors, from the friends and family that have invested in you too. Like we've had a lot of friends invest in us and so everybody has that.
That's very true. So you see, it's not only, so just to redact what I said earlier, so it's not only investors who are waiting for the return, everybody is. Your family who didn't even invest is just investing in time by supporting you.
Absolutely.
Because it's a full-time job, but actually full-time means 24-hour job as a founder, and your family is suffering because you're not there. You're not doing 9 to 5. It is really, really hard. And sometimes you think about it like, do you really want this pain? You really, really need to, it's not a game. So apart from taking money of real investors with real, humans and everything, and you have people whose salaries are depending on you, as you hire them, you are responsible for their families to be able to, win the bread. And if you're giving them equity because they're paying, being paid less, or a little bit lower than market because you're compensating with, they're taking a risk on you by saying, okay, we join and we bet on this company instead of going to a larger player, a more sustainable company or more stable. So yes, there is risk and reward, and it puts more and more pressure on the execution and the team. So I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me touch a little bit upon the family. Of course, I don't have a partner as such, so there is nobody. Like my cats probably see a little bit of my stress, but like my parents do. Like right, like when I talk to all my friends do. I think we were talking about this yesterday in our batch or the section meeting. Was would we do it again? And I don't know if I would do it again or not, but I certainly am willing to acknowledge that there is a real cost to doing startups. Like you said, you're absent for so many things. You are too tired to enjoy some aspects of life. So there's definitely a very tangible cost. And I agree that we are all in it for the ride to some extent. But like I was giving this hypothetical example to somebody, if I told somebody you'll have a great ride, but then you will have zero outcome, I think most people will bail.
Yeah,
We do act from a place of this expectation, and I think it's good to acknowledge that.
that's true. So you, as you say, you have to be honest, if so let's take a little bit step back. So just to put it in perspective, what I think Michael or Gustav said, 17% of the companies only raise a Series A out of the YC companies, right? And the YC applications like what, 18,000 when we got 300
Yeah, I think there
companies?
were like some 16,000 or something in our batch. Yeah.
So from thousands to 300 to 17% of that 300 going out to do a Series A. Leave the B's and C's and I don't know,
Sure.
right? So if you are in that, it's like that hard it is, and it will take a toll. So you really have to be crazy about what you're doing to continue to do, because it just gets hard and hard and hard, right?
Absolutely.
With every new term sheet, for the ones who don't know term sheet, it's an investment thing.
A promise almost. Yeah.
Promise of investment. This is what I will invest at this price. So with every term sheet, the terms are harder to negotiate. You're losing leverage as a founder unless your traction is supporting you.
Sure.
You know, that 10% month over month or whatever it is.
Growth, yeah. The unicorns of the world. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're not doing that, and while doing all of this, you have family and you're not seeing your friends and you're doing those 18-hour days, and it is going to continue for at least 5 to 10 years of your life. So you really need to see, you might be happier by working in a corporate and making the same amount of salary and with a better life, you know, as
Much
a
more
human.
salary, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, and a better, easier life, let's say, than this.
Yeah, sure. Their mental toll is much lower because, there is a lot more people who are supporting you and all of that.
Yeah,
I
didn't
completely
have
agree.
so many white hairs, Hana, before I just started doing startup. To be honest, I mean, I see 3 years old pictures, and you're like, okay, really?
Sure.
And that is true. That the cost is very high, I think.
I remember seeing my YC video, the one where they say like record a 60-second video, and I was so much leaner, and I eat the same, but it's honestly like I can exercise lesser now, unfortunately, and then there's so much more stress that now I get why everybody puts on weight while they do startups, and then they exit, and then you meet them 6 months later, and then they're back looking 5 years younger. Let's take a.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's take another segue, because this conversation is going more longer than I anticipated. So we'll skip a few questions we had. Let's talk about the year is ending. Let's talk about maybe some books that we read this year that were pretty influential for us. What are like the top 2 or 3 books that you think changed your perspective or gave you some comfort through the year?
So if you're doing fundraising, I think I should have read it before, but I read it afterwards, but that's okay still. So Scott Kapoor has a book, The Secrets of Sand Hill Road. I recommend it highly to anybody who's looking to do fundraising, because it goes through almost the mindset, the journey, and into legalities and different documents and, things which you need to think about as a founder, investment, and what does it actually mean. It's, the TechCrunch side is great, let's say, right? Then there's the other side, which is you are having a new partner who is like inviting somebody to your house who's going to stay there for the next 10 years, at least, unless you die or you go public, right? Or you get acquired somewhere. So it's a great book, I think. Highly recommended, Secrets of Sand Hill Road. Then I have The Hard Thing About Hard Things from Ben Horowitz. Never thought about it. After becoming a CEO, it's the book which you should listen, because then it makes more sense. And
I agree with you on that one. I had read it before and I was just like, like when I was bootstrapping my startup, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then all my VC funded friends would like swear by it, and I never understood it. And I think it tells it like how it is.
Yeah.
I think like somehow it's by Ben Horowitz, right? Like Ben
Yes.
Horowitz has this kind of capacity. I think he can get by saying a lot of stuff that a lot of other people would be probably canceled for. Like, I don't know how that book is still like not canceled with all of that. It's like it preaches, it talks in the defense of swearing in your company, for example, at least in his case. Like, so there are outrageous things like that in it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's also that time has passed and their experience was different. And he talks
Sure.
about his loud cloud experience when back in the day, that was like, I don't know, early 2000s or 98s and stuff. So, I mean, that's a long time ago. The world was different at that time, right? So
Sure.
now values and company culture and everything is way more different. So yeah, that won't work. But I think there are some basic lessons about being a CEO and not
Yeah.
a founder, which sometimes you don't, while you are employed by somebody else, you don't understand the whole culture fit thing, which a lot of time people you say, oh, it's not a culture fit, so you have to let go somebody. And then after being a founder and CEO, you realize what that mean is probably this fit is not right for my team or my stage of the company it is, where we are, and et cetera, et cetera. So all of those things, I think there's some learnings over there apart from the swearing part, which is not cool. I can recommend one last third book, which is super cool on people doing hard innovation. It's called The Innovation Stack. It is from the co-founder of Square, Jim McKelvey. And I highly recommend about thinking about how innovation actually works. And yeah, that's a great book. So The Innovation Stack from Jim McKelvey.
I think I read a little bit of it, and it talks about how he hired Jack Dorsey as an intern to build a web page, and then 17 years later he was his co-founder. Yeah, I didn't finish it, but I agree it's a great book, and it talks about how so many things have to happen for a technology to come together.
Yeah. So those are the things.
The
What are
books I
yours?
have, yeah, let me dive into that. I am terrible at finishing books, so I start a lot of books. I don't finish most of them. But one of the books I read was High Output Management. I read about half of it, and it's a classic. And I can see now why people recommend it. I think Ben Horowitz is a big fan of that book as well. And the funny thing is, like, so many words that we throw around, like leverage, or like so many words that are in part of the tech lingo, actually have been I don't know if they came up with it, but at least they have been described in that book. So it's pretty phenomenal to read from that perspective. And it again has just this, it starts by how would you make eggs at a breakfast diner or something. And then it goes from there into how you would manage people. And I think for me, like the biggest thing was it says like, how do you define productivity for a manager? And it says it's the output of the people working for you and then the influence you have on other departments. So even like these kind of basic concepts for me were not very clear. I also kind of went on a bit of a self-help bender this year. So like I think like for a month or two, I was like really trying to, because like I said, I was bootstrapping and then I switched to this venture thing. And there is a huge mindset shift. You can't just do the same thing, just a little bit better. It's a very different mindset. And I felt like I was feeling a little bit blocked. And again, I think he is hated by some people, but I read this book by Tony Robbins called Unlimited Power, which comes, I think he wrote it 25 years ago. And I remember, like, I actually suggested to a lot of friends, there's a section 2 and chapter 11 where he basically guides you through this process of writing down your goals and clarifying them. And that just was like life changing for me. Like, I think just getting clarity on what are the 4 things I want to achieve in the next 1 year, and what do I have which helps, what do I have that doesn't help. That was really good for me. And in that book, I found some other references which I read. And then I unfortunately didn't get to read much fiction this year. I would say, so I just looked at my bookshelf. I did read a little bit more of The Impossible to Inevitable again. And it's a book that's kind of tactical, but also it gives you a lot of comfort. I think Jason Lemkin is very good at reminding people that it takes a long time to build a company, no matter how frothy it looks right now. So even if for nothing else, just for comfort, I think like I enjoy reading that sometimes. Because like we were talking just a few minutes back about these companies that are growing 10% month on month, or I think it's awesome if that happens to your company. Most likely it's better to plan for the average outcome. Like say you have average sales, and I think for me that's kind of adopting that mindset has been helpful. It's like if you achieve the average outcome, would you get to the next round? What do you have to do it? And if you get better than that, then sure. uh, and that is, I think like one thing YC also said was, even for the first 2 or 3 years, nobody really knows who's going to be the winner in the end. It's So don't worry too much about appearances. And so I think that book helps in that. Those would be my 3 recommendations for the year.
Super cool. No, that's true. Yeah, in the first years you don't really know. Now we're seeing all these, W15 and 16 batchmates, and they're like raising amazing rounds, and they have like amazing traction. So I think in the beginning it takes some time to build it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Awesome.
very true.
Let's end on this note. What are you excited about for the next year?
Oh, I think I really hope that COVID thing goes away and there's
Oh, sure.
no more versions of that. I really want to. I think I really want to be able to recover that, at least a hybrid human touch with customers, non-customers, investors, and colleagues. Company building is super important, and you cannot really. This whole remote thing is great. I mean, we're doing this video call and it feels fine, but that sitting together, having breaking bread, and having a good laugh is really important. So look forward to that very much in terms of in general, in terms of company. So yeah, we are doing some cool product related stuff, which is going to launch Q1 next year. We're getting some regulatory things going on. So tons of things happening, customers going live. So really look forward to getting that graph of transaction volume going up to the right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm sure it will. Cool. Yeah. For me, I have to agree with you. I wasn't thinking about it, but yeah, it'd be nice to sort of at least not lose what we have. So now I'm actually like I've lowered my expectations, and it would just be great if the world didn't close down further. And if it got better, that'd just be awesome. So let's get that out of the way. I've recently started doing some coaching finally, like after many people suggested, and I can already like see it being beneficial. So I'm pretty excited to. I think I don't know about you, but people like us have been rewarded forever for sort of like knowing the answers and getting stuff done. So our temptation is always to like jump in, give the answers to teams, get the work done ourselves. And being a coach is very different. And I can see that with my coach. And I'm hoping I can bring a little bit of that to my team now. And I can be more like a coach than like sort of this individual contributor that just got promoted. So I think on the business side, it's that I'm also excited, obviously, to, like you said, to meet more people in person. We actually did one retreat with our investors, and we have a company retreat coming up soon. So I definitely look forward to that as well for the next year. I hope it keeps happening.
Super cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. This was great fun. And thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Like I said, this is the last episode for this year. So we'll see you again in January. I hope you all have a great holiday season. You all get to rest a bit, play with your pets, read some books, and with your kids too. And see you all in January.
Thanks a lot. Happy holidays.